GRA. About a half an hour before showtime, I was told by my producer, Bill, that there was a tornado. Trees are down. He has no power. So I'm just going to shoot the program here in my studio, which I normally do anyway, except it will not air on KGRA, but it will be here on YouTube. So thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. By the way, last couple of weeks, we have been number 4 in our time slot. I'm extremely proud of this. That's incredible. Number 4, just look at the lineup. I mean, my gosh, we're beating Sean Hannity. How is that possible? But what this is this is internet listeners, certainly not television or anything else, but these are people who are tuning in on the internet at my time slot at 6 p.m. on the West Coast. Go figure. So I'm just really proud of that, and I thank you all for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the little subscriber button. We're trying to get over 100,000 people before the end of the year, and we'll see what happens with that. And I think we're like at, I don't know, 81,000 or something people that have subscribed, and we really appreciate that. So let's get right into it. This has been circulating on certain sites, and it's a video, and it was basically a security camera, and this guy's pickup truck, and this is supposed to be an angel over the pickup truck. Not so fast, citizen. Look, folks, I'm a frank supernaturalist. I believe in the supernatural. I write books about the supernatural. I create films about the supernatural. Number 1, nowhere in the biblical prophetic narrative does it state that angels have wings. This has been depicted over the years, basically through art. So we've got this idea that, angels somehow have wings, because even the biblical prophetic narrative says, and I flew swiftly here. Well, how does that work? We don't know. But when angels appear in all of the narrative, all throughout Scripture, I should say, they appear as men. And sometimes even Paul the Apostle tells us that people have entertained angels unawares. So the idea that angels come in with these huge white wings is just, in my opinion, it's just a misnomer. What I think this is, and I'm entitled to my opinion, I think it's a moth. That's all. I hate to say that, but that's what I think it is. In the meantime, I do believe in angels. I've had 2 visitations. I'll just tell you one, and it's going to be actually published in an upcoming book. But I was running, and the backstory is about a 20-minute story, so I'm not going to get into that. But I was running up here in the old days, in my early 30s, and I would run these hills and trails all throughout the Santa Monica Mountains. It was really fun. But I don't do that anymore. My knees won't take it, so I'm on the flatland on the asphalt down by Zuma Beach. But here's the deal. One day I got back from work and I was exhausted. I'm a brand new Christian, probably 6 months in, reading the Bible, trying to figure out what's what. And I'm really exhausted. I don't feel like doing this run. And as I'm running, I'm kind of going, Lord, I really don't want to do this today. I'm exhausted, and I'm that far from nope, I'm just going to turn around and walk home. I'm done. I was about a quarter mile into the run. All of a sudden, it felt like I was picked up and moved 20, 30 feet up the road. And I just go, whoa! I mean, literally picked up and moved through the air 30 feet, and I just started laughing, and it did it again. That's my angelic encounter. No one was around. I didn't see anything, but I was filled with such energy after that and this hill, my wife calls it Butt Blaster Hill. I mean, it's grueling, and I powered up to the lake and went from there. But that's perhaps a story for another time. Does Israel have the right to defend her borders? Look, I mean, I get this thing. The left is all over this. Well, Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Oh my gosh, we can't do that because we might insult some Muslims who all they care about is the destruction of Israel anyway. So let me get this straight. Back in '95, Bush the Elder promised to move the embassy, our ambassador and our embassy, from Tel Aviv down to Jerusalem. Bush the Younger promised the same thing. Clinton did. Obama did. And, here we are, right? And finally, Trump promises that in the campaign, but he makes good on the promise. And the Israelis love it. So let me get this straight. Hamas brings 30,000 people up to the border, and what they do is they hide the jihadis in with the masses, in with the women and children. So as the jihadis try to cross illegally, by the way, or tear down the fence, they are shot. Now these are the same people. Of course, you don't hear this on the New York Slimes, but here's the deal. These are the same people that make kites and put incendiary devices on the tails of the kites and then fly the kites so they go over and land in Israel and start a fire or bombs or whatever. These are the same people that construct terror tunnels that can go in there and pop up and then kill people or abduct people. These are the same people that little 2-year-old or 4-year-old kid has a knife going, I want to stab a Jew. So Israel has the right to defend her border. And this is a deliberate action by Hamas, deliberately to incite the type of nonsense that we see in the media. Look, folks, we are really close to having that whole place go south. I'll be flying over there next week. 22 people on our tour. I'm excited. Unless the airport in Tel Aviv is closed, I will go. I want to see Israel. I want to see Jerusalem. I want to see Gilgal Raphaim and all those sites. So this is what's happening. And keep your eye on Damascus. Keep your eye on the Iranians. Keep your eye on Hezbollah. It's got 150 to 200,000 rockets aimed at Tel Aviv, but there is no Air Force. There's no Air Force. So how's that going to work out? The Iranians have 80,000 troops just north of Damascus. And as I showed this clip before, the suburbs around Damascus have become a ruinous heap. So that's just a quick update on two things which have caught my eye. And my guest tonight is Chase Klodsky. We're going to be talking about how the UFO phenomenon links inexorably with what happened at Fatima. I think you'll find that really interesting. So I'll bring Chase on in just a second. And my guest tonight is a good friend of mine. We've been to Peru together a bunch of times. And last time I saw Chase Klodsky was at our press conference, our DNA press conference right here in Los Angeles. She gave a wonderful presentation. But tonight I want to drill in. And Chase, by the way, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
It's always my honor to be with you, LA. You know I love it.
Wonderful. But, you know, Chase, in the film Fatima 2, Strange Phenomena, the reason why I brought you into the film is because you've been exploring and looking at UFOs literally for decades. And in some ways, and I think, you know, without patting you on the back, but you are an expert. I mean, that you are, there's not a lot of us out there that's doing this, and you're certainly at the top of the heap. An ongoing field investigator. You've been out, you know, for decades. You wrote one of the books on how to bring in evidence and on a forensic level. So, I mean, you're really incredible at what you do. And the whole thing, well, you're welcome. But the whole idea with Fatima, it's been, when you say that to people realize that, well, you know, it's like, I knew about this when I was a little kid. And what does this have to do with UFOs? Well, in our opinion, and I know you believe as I do, it has everything to do with UFOs. So there was one part of the October 13th, 1917, so-called miracle of the sun, when people were standing out in the field and they were completely drenched because it had been raining. So they're drenched to the bone with water, and this disc-like object flies over the crowd, and they have skin burns, and the clothes are dry. Speak to that. What do you think that was?
It's not uncommon to hear in UFO reports, and even in modernity, LA, we have reports, probably to cite one of our most famous would be Cash Landrum, where they had witnessed a craft as well. And the ladies were driving back from a church meeting dinner, and actually they thought it was the second coming of Christ, and that, you know, they were witnessing something very apocalyptic almost, and they had gotten out of their vehicle, and poor Betty, for the rest of her life, suffered horrible burns and severe sickness. And when they tried to get back in the vehicle, it was so hot that she burned her hand on the door handle. But after getting medical treatment, a few days later, her hair started falling out. They realized it was much more significant, but it started with the craft. And what I want to do with this interview, Chase, because we only have got 20 minutes, I want to kind of go over step by step some of the different phenomena that actually happened
in that field. And of course, the backstory is 70,000 people are gathered at Fatima because they've been told there's going to be a sign. No one knows what. All morning, people are drenched to the bone, as I stated earlier, and suddenly the clouds part, and another cloud comes in front of the sun. Another cloud comes in front of the sun, and out of this cloud comes an object. And in the film, you talk about how UFOs use clouds for coverage. Speak to that, please.
Again, just going through the database in MUFON alone, and there's many databases, including the National UFO Reporting Center, they're just littered with these strange-looking clouds where objects are coming out, or they'll see the objects go into a cloud. And of course, one of my favorite would be Chicago incident, where it was at hangar C-17, where many witnesses outside, aviation specialists, pilots, saw a craft just zoom up and leave a donut hole or a donut-shaped type cloud behind. So clouds it's just all over UFO reports and allegations.
We have a gentleman that came on camera in the film, and what's amazing about this, he's at his house out in the country in Texas. And I guess he's right in a fly zone where planes are coming in to land in Austin. And so he looks up one day, and there's a plane that's coming in, but all of a sudden the plane starts to throttle back, and that kind of piques his curiosity. And he looks up, and he sees a large silver disc. Hello. And it goes into a cloud, and he keeps waiting for it to come out. And he waits a little longer, and he waits longer still, and finally he realizes this thing isn't coming out. And so, you're right. We see this over and over again within the UFO phenomenon. Something is happening. And the reason why we bring this up is because, without trying to offend anyone here, I firmly believe that what happened 100 years ago, actually 101 years ago, this October 13th, was a harbinger of deception. It was a UFO event. Now, we've given you the backstory. People were waiting for something, and the cloud moves in front, an object appears, and it's a dull silver disc. Now, when this thing appears, Chase, it begins to spin wildly and throw off a lot of different colors over the crowd. Tell us how that relates to the modern day UFO phenomenon.
It could have been lights that they were seeing at that time. Back in that day, they wouldn't know how to describe it other than color, especially with the spinning effect. It could be a plethora of effects that the craft was displaying. But what we do know is, again, lights in the sky, our number one UFO report, and 70,000 people. We have to, it's even hard to visualize what that looks like.
It's a lot of people.
And exactly. And it would depend on where you were standing in that crowd, what exactly you could see. For someone like my size standing in back of ULA, I may only see part of it, so it would look cigar shaped. And for you being taller, you would see maybe more of it, the real saucer or dome shape. So some of these, some of the things that the witnesses were reporting about the spinning and the different colors, again, this is all modern UFO claims today.
And we had a woman who was at Conyers, Georgia, and I show a brief clip of that, of a so-called pulsing sun miracle that happened in Conyers, Georgia. And what's really interesting to me about this is she's standing and looking up at the phenomenon right in front of her, and her fiance is right next to her. So they're like right next to each other, okay, touching shoulders as couples do. She looks up at the phenomenon and she sees a religious figure, what she thinks is a religious figure. He's less than a foot away. He looks up and he sees a silver disc. He sees a UFO. Speak to that, because that's just off the charts in my opinion.
I think it's our own inner spirit, or what our belief system is as we grow up. She immediately went to a religious explanation for what she was seeing, and maybe he was more of a science-minded person, and he saw maybe a disc shape. There's other reports where experiencers or abductees will say that they can pretty much show you individually what they want you to see. So maybe it wouldn't have frightened her to see something more religious instead of the disc. Again, this is something we study, and why the UFO reports are so valuable, because now we're starting to put pieces together. And when you partner that with some of the science that's discovered today and workable, these are science, facts, and physics that are employed today. These things aren't so far-fetched anymore. They're a reality.
Well, it goes back to Tucker Carlson in December, which basically was disclosure when he had Commander Fravor on talking about his encounter with a UFO, and then they show, as Fravor's on there, they show the clip. I mean, that's disclosure on a major network.
Absolutely.
And it's like, the American people, most people just, well, who cares? It's huge, because they're starting to reveal what's going on. And I'm going to go someplace with this, because the reason why I keep hammering on the Fatima apparitions, so-called Fatima apparitions, and we're getting emails from people who are watching the film and commenting on how just they've watched it several times because there's so much information there. What we discovered, and most people don't know this, was that automobiles stopped working completely. The hoods of the automobiles flew open, windshields shattered, and gasoline spontaneously combustion. Chase, you know where I'm going with this. How is this analogous to the modern day UFO phenomenon?
Anybody can Google information like this, because vehicles are often described as slowing down, stopping, pulling off the side of the road, even anomalies. There's a report of a police officer and his car was just destroyed. And the same thing, broken windshield. It's their Google search. They're so common. And I think that's why, LA, that all these decades, when we would look into the phenomena at Fatima, it read as a UFO report to me. So I kind of love the analogy of you digging into something religious, and then here I am on a UFO scientific end, and I saw a UFO event, and then when you dig into the facts of the witnesses, clearly, with what we know today and the descriptions of technology that we have, available, it's every day to us, we can better describe what's going on. But Fatima, 150% was UFO.
I agree. I mean, I'm not backing off on that. And again, without trying to disparage anyone's belief system, people can believe whatever they want to believe. We're not attacking people. If you want to believe that Fatima was what the status quo is, then more power to you. We're just saying these are the facts that we discovered. It's in the film, and we find it incredibly alarming, because Fatima, and I'll get into this in the second half in my monologue again, that Fatima sets a precedence, Chase. In other words, everyone just believes that, oh, this is some wonderful, benevolent deal. What if it's not? What if it's a harbinger of deception? Now, there was another dynamic to this whole thing, and that was what people have labeled angel hair, because people just name things. We don't know what these strange fibers were, but they fell over the crowd, and they were white fibers, and we talk about this in the film too. We've got experts weighing in on it and discussing it, but you've been around this stuff, and you know what I'm talking about, the angel hair. Tell us how what happened at Fatima is exactly what happens here right now with the modern day UFO phenomenon.
We can find this material or the fibers dating way back to Nuremberg, the Nuremberg UFO picture, 1952 in France, and even today it was 2014 in Sri Lanka. This angel hair is, again, a known component that I wouldn't say it's very common, but it's certainly not rare. It does continue to develop. Now, of course, science wants to explain it as, they're floating dust particles, and it interacts with atmospheric electricity. This is a reality, but if you can't duplicate that in a lab, that meeting of two particles, the electricity and the particles, make it a white fiber that floats like heavenly hair down to earth, then it's just a theory as much as anything else.
Sure.
The angel hair is shocking, and it also dissipates immediately. When you touch it, it disappears.
You know, there was another component which we discovered in our 2-week tour of Fatima and talking to a myriad of witnesses, all who present just incredible information in the film Fatima 2 Strange Phenomena. And one of those, which was very troubling to me, and again, most people have no idea that this occurred. There's a fourth witness, Infina Di Armato, who passed away in 2014. She's the researcher that went into the Fatima archives and read the original handwritten documents from 1917. And both of our films, Fatima 1, Fatima 2, all of our information is drawn, the source is from that 1917 handwritten documents by Father Fiera. So she's in there reading these, and she discovers that there's a fourth seer, a fourth witness who encounters a being just shortly before Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta do. And you weigh in on this in the film, and it's this being, the woman is named Carolina Carrera. She's 12, and she sees this blonde-haired figure. She's not sure it's a boy or a girl. It's very androgynous looking, and it's playing underneath the same holm oak tree that the apparition would later appear to the three children of Fatima. And it's communicating with Carolina telepathically. The mouth isn't moving, telepathic voice to skull communication is going on. Carolina is afraid. She does, and it's telling her, come here. And Carolina doesn't want to go. So she looked back. She's tending sheep, just like Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta did. And she's illiterate, and that's just the way things were back then. And she turns back to the sheep. They seem paralyzed. Then she looks back, and the figure is no longer there. She looks up, and the figure is floating above the treetop. Your thoughts on that?
That gave me chills, because the first time I ever heard any of this was, of course, your research finding the person who found the fourth witness. I just thought that was brilliant work, because who gets to read or gain that kind of information from Vatican sources, right? That's forbidden. And you were brilliant in getting this forward.
Thank you.
It chills me, LA, because this is, again, anybody can Google and come up with 500 reports of these little blonde-haired children. They're more known as hybrids in the UFO community. They do, the telepathic, the unknown physics where they're able to float, but it's mostly the oddity of these children asking to interact with human children, and there's something so odd about them, it frightens the human children. So again, every step we take, there's just a lineage and a whole almost chart of it just never stops. And I love your quote. You always say this phenomena is burgeoning, and this story is not going away. And that includes almost every element of Fatima.
And what I find alarming, and I'm going to get into this after I let you go, but thanks so much for coming on, is that this whole experience has set a precedent, and people believe that pulsing suns and amorphous-looking blobs of light are somehow benevolent. We don't know that, and I'm alarmed by what I see. What came across my desk was another researcher who shot me an email, and we talked about this again in the film. We know that Portugal was steeped in ancient goddess worship, and the goddess there was Mora Encantada, the enchantress Mora. And these ancient goddesses were guardians of gateways and portals, and they had the ability to spin the sun. And so these sun miracles are happening now in modernity. It's not going away. And I honestly think it's setting people up for a deception. Chase, I'll give you the last word. Thanks so much for coming on. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there is no better time for this information to be revisited, especially as a harbinger. When you consider some of the physics that are happening now, Would we have the person that led ATIP, the Pentagon's program, coming out saying things about portals and, you know, this is bigger, this is bigger. This isn't just a interplanetary phenomena, it's bigger. And this is going to include supernatural. And we need to be prepared for that. And when you're having brilliant intelligence officers going there, this may be one of the reasons the government doesn't want to come out. But I agree with you, LA. It's already been confirmed. It's already done.
It's already done. It's
now
just, yeah.
Now it's about who are they and exactly what do they want. But we have a good idea.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. And we'll get into that. Chase Klotsky, everybody. Chase, thanks so much for coming on the record. Always a pleasure to see you, even if it's through the magic of Skype.
Yes, thank you, LA. It was my pleasure.
And now, folks, it's time for some of my favorite part of Acceleration Radio. I get to talk about jingos. Here are a couple of testimonies. This one was so good, I had to read it again. Hey, LA, my name is Sport, and I'm a very old poodle. My master Paul bought a bottle of jingos for me. You see, I'm blind and deaf, so I have a hard time figuring out where I'm at. When I think I'm inside, I take a nap outside on the grass. Other times, I think I'm outside, but I'm really inside and do what I'm supposed to do outside inside, which makes a mess on the floor. Thanks to jingos, my accidents are quickly cleaned up with no lingering odors, and my master Paul is pleased with the results. You're a furry fan, Sport. One more. This is from Michael, LA. All right, this came in a couple of days ago. And by the way, if you've got a testimony, shoot it to me on an email, la@lamarzulli.net, la@lamarzulli.net. LA, our irresponsible neighbors have an unneutered cat who decided a few weeks ago that he was going to spray our front storm door. Folks, I used to have cats, and cat urine is very, very potent. Not as bad as skunk, but very nasty. Not only that, some got on the mat in front of the door, sprayed everything down with jingos, and it immediately killed the smell. It was gone. As you say, this stuff really works. Folks, this stuff does work. It's not available in stores. Go to www.buyjingos.com, buyjingos.com. And you know what? This is what's really cool. You can go and purchase by the gallon. So, I mean, I love this stuff. We use it all the time. And I love selling a product that I know works and that people are pleased with. And people now are starting to reorder. Get the gallon because you save money and you don't have to, get these little spritzer bottles. You can just refill them up. So this stuff really works. Go to www.buyjingos.com.
By Jingos, it's amazingly fresh and clean out here in beautiful New Zealand. G'day America, I'm Tarby, and I want to tell you about my new ultimate stain and odour remover, Jingos. My Jingos gunk gobblers will tackle stubborn organic stains and eliminate nasty stinking odours at the same time. Jingos effectively removes those little accidents like wine, coffee, dirt, blood, grass, even pet stains, and odours like fish, garlic, even skunk. Jingos is environmentally friendly, safe for use on fabrics, carpet, upholstery, and it works great as a laundry pre-soak on the worst pet or people accidents. Come on America, what are you waiting for? Just go online and order your Jingos for $12.95 and get a 4-ounce travel pack free. Crikey, pay $19.95 and I'll double your order. That's 2 large Jingos and 2 travel packs for just $19.95. Blasted seagulls, where's my Jingos?
Well, we're back. Thanks for listening to Acceleration Radio. And I'm going to do something which I always get some people, hey, you can't be eating on microphones, you're chomping your lips, it's smacking your lips, it's absolutely disgusting, yada, 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 yada. This is a freeze-dried strawberry. I'm going to pop it in my mouth right now. And I will smack my lips. Spoiler alert. And the reason why, in fact, I'll put it down, I'll be good. But these are so good. Freeze-dried food. It's amazing. Look, stuff happens. The Kilauea volcano's going on. Tornadoes on the East Coast. Flash floods. Stuff happens. Stuff happens. And this is the cool thing. You can get, for $995, and get what you get. Listen what you get for this. A total of 825 servings of raspberries, bananas, peaches, apples, strawberries, sweet corn, green peas, and broccoli. Oh, and by the way, you can just buy the one pack for $19.95 free shipping to sample it and see how really. See, I want to eat this, but I'm going to be good, and I won't do it. But you can sample it for basically $20 and get it and realize that, wow, this stuff is really good. Stockpile it, because you know what, folks? We are in tenuous, tumultuous times, and it ain't getting any better. So for just under $1,000, $995, free shipping, you get this. 825 servings, raspberries, bananas, peaches, apples, strawberries, sweet corn, green peas, and broccoli. That's a staple. And look, things happen, and an EMP could happen. Anything can happen. Floods, fires. Put it in a safe place, and then you're prepared. You can feed your family. www.simplycleanfoods.net. Thanks for watching, folks, and second half of the show here. And I want to get into this because we sort of set things up with Chase. Incoming email. This is from Steven. I have to tell you, the first video on Fatima was great. The second was absolutely amazing. I have watched it twice, just gave it to my parents to watch today. The miracle of the sun I have seen with my own eyes. I remember the heat I felt. I remember the hair all over my body standing up. I remember the cloud that the sun seemed to come out of. The image I will never forget was when it went away. The darkest clouds I have ever seen to roll in with lightning. This happened in Falmouth, Kentucky around 1997. My whole family saw this. We have a video on VHS I'm going to find and send it to you. Keep up the great work. Okay, so why should you care? Why should we care? Why did I make the film? Because it's a warning. As a watchman, it's a warning. Because the UFO phenomenon is real, burgeoning, and not going away. The events at Fatima set a precedent which has continued into modernity. What I mean by that is simply this, that in Fatima, 101 years ago this October, something supernatural occurred. It has been, the phenomena has been managed and under basically to hold to a certain paradigm, and that's fine. But what if it's not that paradigm? What if something happened at Fatima which is not what we think it is? In other words, if it wasn't the sun, then what was it? And why do we hear over and over again witnesses looking up and seeing a dull silver disc? Well, it's 100 years ago. What does this have to do with me? It has everything to do with you. Why? Because it's happening right now in modernity, as I'll show you in just a few minutes. It's happening right now. And the fact that Fatima, and get this, the fact that Fatima has set a precedent to accept this as something benevolent and from the God of the Bible is the harbinger of deception. In other words, 101 years ago, this event was accepted. And now, decades later, when people see these things, like at the Coptic Church, and I'm going to roll the tape in a little bit, at the Coptic Church, you can see it for yourself. These are amorphous blobs of light. The sun is pulsing in other places. So what? We know that ancient goddesses had the ability to spin the sun. We are warned in the biblical prophetic narrative. We are warned that the dragon will come with all signs and lying wonders. We should heed that warning. And there's a lot of folks out there who don't want to touch this stuff. They don't want to look at it. They're afraid to look at it. Folks, I got to tell you, the enemy is ramping up. Just look at the global chaos that we find ourselves in right now. The Middle East is a powder keg ready to blow. I mean, people, it used to be the left and the right wings of politics, were left and right wing. I get it. Now it's like a disparity and growing. And some of the vitriol from the left towards anyone who disagrees with their position is just beyond the pale. So this is from a bus several weeks ago in Massachusetts. And this illustrates my point exactly. Because what we see are the participants in this supernatural event, and they believe it's benign, it's benevolent, and it's from God. I'm going to roll this for you now. Here we go. That's why this is important. That's why this is important. No one there is testing the spirits. No one is rebuking first, asking questions later. And that's very simple to do. The Lord rebuke you. That's all you say. If this is not from you, Lord, please shut it down. You stand up and say, the blood of a lamb. You do what you got to do, but you stop it. No one's testing the spirits. Everyone's embracing it. Why? Because the events that happened at Fatima 100 years ago set a precedent to accept this as something from God. The events at Fatima 101 years ago, this October 13th, set a precedent, accepted it as, well, this has got to be from God. Not so fast, citizen. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And I'm going to show you a clip here in a little bit, but before I do, this particular presentation, I want to drill in on what I call as a smoking gun. All right? Now, when I started researching Fatima, which is well over 15 years ago, I remember calling up a place in Canada, and I won't mention the name, and I asked the woman I was speaking to, I said, do you have any pictures of the so-called miracle of the sun? She said, Mr. Marzulli, I know we do. Give me a couple of weeks, call back, and I'll send them down to you. I said, great. A couple of weeks go by, I call up, and I asked this woman, well, have you found the pictures? There's a pause on the other end of the phone. And she says, Mr. Marzulli, the strangest thing, we looked everywhere, but we found pictures of the event and the people there before and after, but nothing of the miracle of the sun. And, I remember going on Coast to Coast. And by the way, I will be on Coast to Coast tomorrow night with George Norrie. That's always a hoot. And let me see, that will be the 16th of May. So for those of you who are watching this a few weeks from now or whatever, it's already come and gone. But I'll be on tomorrow night, the 16th of May. And I'll be talking about all this in depth with George, and that's always a hoot. But I always felt that somebody somewhere must have gotten the shot of the so-called miracle of the sun. I mean, photographers are trained to get the shot. That's what photographers do. They get the shot. So we're not sure how many photographers were in the field 101 years ago. But we know of one man who was there. His name is Joshua Benolio. He took 12 photographs. And out of those 12, according to Jose here, 4 of them have problems. Now, Jose Machado is a professor of semiotics at a university in Portugal. And we interviewed him in the film. He comes on the film, and we have 4 expert witnesses who basically pummel Jose with questions about the photograph, which he reveals, which we reveal in the film. We also published Jose's book, Miracle of the Sun. It's a very small book. I wrote the foreword to it. Francisco Correa also wrote a second foreword to it. And the book is just very short, very small, but it's packed with information. And in my opinion, never before seen photographs of the so-called miracle of the sun. So this is a smoking gun to us. I've always wondered if there were photographs. Now, Jose had access to the sanctuary at Fatima. What I mean by that is he went in, he was able to go in to where all the records are kept in the Fatima archives in Fatima, Portugal. And he was able to handle, as you can see right here, the original glass plates. He's able to handle the original glass plates. And this is what he sees. And I'm going to show you, and you really can't see it here in this film, but the second clip, the second slide I'll show you will be able to, you'll be able to see it. In fact, let me just go there. There's the disc. This is how it looks in the original negative, and all we did was clean some of the artifacts from it. So this is the original photograph, and it's not been seen by the public before, and we published it. This has the smoking gun, literally. In the corner here, you can see smoke billowing up from the ground. Something is causing this fire, this smoke. The smoke travels up and then makes a right angle turn to where the disc is. The disc is directly over the apparition site, which is right there. Directly over the apparition site. So there's smoke on the ground, it's billowing up, it makes a right angle turn, and the disc stops right over the apparition site. In my opinion, this is a smoking gun. And what's incredible, the eyewitnesses in the field that day talk of looking up. This is on the handwritten record from 1917, not 28, not 35 or the 1960s, 1917, right after or as close to the event as we possibly can get without being there, okay? And people, lawyers, doctors looked up and they state on the record, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. A dull silver disc. So I think those of us who have been looking at this and participated in the film, Francisco, Joaquin Fernandez, Fina de Armada, and when Fina de Armada was alive, she actually sat down with Jose Machado and they were filmed together for an episode about Fatima. And that was supposed to be aired in Portugal. And the higher-ups put the kibosh on it because they deemed the information too controversial. So Jose has come on the record with us in the film Fatima 2. We are excited by that. And again, I think it's an absolute smoking gun. And, what do we do with this? Again, a harbinger of deception, strange phenomena. That's exactly what I think took place. So what we're doing is we've got a Fatima 2 special, and it ends Friday. We have Jose's book, okay, right here, Miracle of a Son and Fatima 2, and also a free DVD of me lecturing at the Prophecy Watchers Conference last year on Fatima. So you get all this for $19.99. Normally it'd be $39, basically $40. So it's a 50% sale off. We want the information to go out. So for $19, you get Jose's book, and this is never before seen photographs are in the book. Plus, you get his expert analyses of what he was looking at. Jose is in the sanctuary, and he's handling the glass plates, and he states on the record in his book and in our film that this object was intrinsic. It was in the film, in the glass negative. In the glass negative. It was not a smudge or a chemical burn or a scratch or any of that. It was actually in the glass plate. Why should you care? Because what it does is it takes the official narrative and stands it on its head. So when you purchase Fatima 2, what you will see is the fourth witness, Carolina Carriera, who Fina de Armada met and spoke to, and that testimony is in the film. She had that encounter with that blonde-haired being who spoke to her telepathically. You'll hear about the strange burns on the skin as the disc flew low over the crowd. I'm going to go back to here. The disc flew very low over this crowd, less than 100 feet. And people directly under that, their clothes were instantly dry as was the ground. You'll hear about the strange white fibers that fell on the crowd. You'll hear about the windshields exploding, car hoods popping up, gasoline exploding. So all this is in Fatima 2 and much, much more. And it really gives us an overview that what happened that day, 100 years ago, is a harbinger, a precursor of a deception that is ongoing in the world today. So here's the clip, folks. Check this out. These sun miracles and apparitions are all from the present day.
What happened at Fatima is now in the far distant past. Over 100 years ago, events occurred which are still the subject of debate today. However, there have been numerous apparition sites since 1917. This segment will explore more of a strange phenomenon that is occurring in modernity. We will present real footage of so-called apparitions and ask you to determine what it is you are looking at. Can we really ascertain what these indistinct images of light are? You be the judge.
to call your attention to the absolute hysteria that we're witnessing. Is something supernatural happening? Absolutely, all day long. Something supernatural. But where is the source behind it? And why should we accept it as something benevolent? If someone knocks on your door at 2:30 in the morning, do you just let them in? Oh yeah, come on into my house, no problem. How do you know? No one in the right mind would ever do that, right? So why should we accept this just because we've been told that it's benevolent? You see where I'm going with this? This is what's so alarming about it to me. Fatima, 101 years ago, set a precedent, so now it's accepted. It's the norm. It's the accepted norm. Again, listen to the hysteria. Listen to the pandemonium surrounding. Look, they're seeing something supernatural. No one's disputing that. But who is sourcing it? Who is sourcing it? And just because this religious figure looks a little like Jesus, nonsense. Let me just stop it right here. So these are amorphous blobs of light. Like you're supposed to be Jesus, supposed to be Mary, and maybe Joseph and an angel. Amorphous blobs of light. How can we possibly ascertain what it is we're looking at? So what we see is we see people coming together at that last scene, the Coptic Church in Egypt, 2009, and Muslims and Christians together, and they're all celebrating this thing. This leads to the one world religion. It's all, Satan comes with all signs and lying wonders. I'm not making this stuff up. Jesus warns us in the end times there'll be deception. Folks, it's here. It's here. And I guarantee most of you have never seen those clips. Your pastors, for the most part, with all due respect, have never seen those clips. So they're ignorant. You're ignorant of what's going on. And this is what we do here. We go out and we try to expose the works of the enemy. We expose the works of the fallen one. We do it with our Nephilim books. We do it with Fatima 1 and Fatima 2. We do it with UFOs Are Real, the Watchman Chronicles. UFOs Are Real in their own words. We bring this to you so you can be armed and aware of the tenuous times that we find ourselves in. The special ends on Friday. It's basically 50% off. You get Fatima 2, Jose Machado's groundbreaking book. And by the way, this is the first book that we publish under Spiral of Life. And of course, the bonus DVD of my presentation at Prophecy Watchers Conference discussing Fatima. All that for basically $20. And when you support us by doing this with your gift to purchase this stuff, you're not only arming yourself, but you help us stay out in the field. Folks, we'll be going to Israel next week. Please keep us in prayer. Things are very tumultuous over there. Anything can happen. But unless Tel Aviv airport is closed, we will be there. That's all the time we have for Remember. I'll see you on the air or in the air. Thanks for watching. What if what happened in Fatima 101 years ago was much more complex than any of us could have imagined? What if there was a fourth witness hidden away for decades, and through the detective work of researcher Fina Diarmata, this witness was discovered and interviewed? In that interview, the fourth witness described seeing a being with blonde hair floating in midair above the same tree that the apparition would later appear over. What if the so-called angel hair that fell over the crowd is also reported by witnesses who have had close encounters with UFOs today? Then there is the dull silver disc, which flew over the 80,000 people gathered at Fatima, which seemed to create chaos as car windshields exploded, hoods flew open, and gasoline spontaneously combusted. What if there was a picture taken 101 years ago that lay undiscovered in the Fatima archives until one man, Jose Machado, had access to it? What he found may be a smoking gun. Then there are the numerous reports of apparitions and so-called sun miracles. But what are these really? Could they be harbingers of deception? This is Fatima 2, Strange Phenomenon.